Okay, so sorry for the technical difficulties. Just in interest of time, I am going to go ahead and get started. So let me do some quick intros and ground rules. As I mentioned, I am recording the presentation. So if you want to refer back to this later, or if you have to drop off for any reason, you can access that recording on our website later today. My name is Will Cooper. I am the training coordinator for Infowise, and our session today is talking about doing visual workflow in SharePoint. And I'm really interested to show you some concepts and show you how I can pull that off without using any custom code. So we're going to launch right into that. I'm going to try to go through here. If you have any questions, just feel free to post that into the chat interface. Later in our session, I will be doing a giveaway for an embroidered Infowise shirt. So if you guys can stick around to the end, we'll do a drawing for that. And that's it. We'll go ahead and jump in. So I'm really a big advocate for visual components in SharePoint. SharePoint out of the box can be kind of dull in terms of just having textual information on screens and just providing not much in terms of visual reference. So I do feel like in terms of creating tools, it's very important to incorporate visual components into your SharePoint sites and tools just to have impact and get better engagement from your users. So to start out, before we even jump into SharePoint, I'm just going to talk to you about this diagram I've set up. So there's this really easy to use free tool that I have showing in front of me. It's called draw.io. It's a Google tool. It doesn't cost anything, and it's just really simple. You can just open this up and start drawing out a diagram really without any kind of instruction or anything. General concept is you can pick components and drag them onto the interface and change their colors and do labels and all that kind of stuff. And it just works really well. So there's other tools you can do this. So if you already have something like this that you really like, that's perfectly fine. If you're going to build a tool that is where the process is important, it's a good idea to maybe think about that before you go about building your SharePoint list. So even before you do anything in SharePoint, it makes a lot of sense to draw this out. Now, typically, you might be doing this, and then by the time you get into SharePoint and start building your process, you're just going to sort of not include this. But what I'm going to demonstrate today is a way where you can integrate this into your tool and process and make things look a lot more compelling. So what I actually want in the tool that I have is to show, with highlighting, where you are in the process. So what I showed here is basically an order system. So what you see in this process flow diagram is you get a new order, and then for this business, it's either a corporate order or it's a regular order, and you would go through these steps. So they have a standard work process that they follow. So what we want to be able to do is for each of those orders, we can just, highlight, show that, and just really help people to understand, well, what comes next, what were the steps along the way, that kind of thing. So this is the kind of setup you can do really for any kind of a business process. And so what I want to show is how you can go from here to pulling this into SharePoint and actually build out a solution without having to do any fancy programming or custom code to pull that off. Okay, so let me go into my SharePoint site, and all I did here, I just created a classic SharePoint team site. I'm showing this in SharePoint Online, and like I say, it's just a simple order system. So what you see on here, I'll kind of talk about the end product first, and then I'll talk to you a little bit about how you could put this together. I've just got my order system, and they're going through, and you see I've got a status for each of those places in my diagram. So I'll kind of show you what the forms look like for this. So right away you kind of tell this doesn't look like your standard SharePoint list form. We've got a tabbed interface. It's kind of broken up into logical sections. And this is how we're going to interact with the system. So the customer information, that's really plain vanilla. We've got all their address and contact info there. And then on my second tab, I've got an order set up. Now you see I've got a many-to-one relationship set up there. That's not something you can do with out-of-the-box SharePoint. It's something I can do with these Infowise tools, so I can create multiple line items for an order and have it automatically roll up a total for me. My order process, these are actions. The general idea here is as you're working your way through that process, I can just check a box and it kind of moves the train along the tracks, if you think of it that way. And here's kind of the heart of the concept that I want to show. In this third tab for any of these orders, it helps me as a user understand where am I in this process. So this particular one is a new status and it's at the beginning of the process. You'll see as we interact with this form and we're doing this order, it'll change and highlight different areas. Another key part about this is history tracking. So we'd like to know in terms of making sure we're responsive, doing well. We'd like to see when this thing changes process, that kind of thing. All of us get those email updates and shipping orders. We're trying to kind of match that kind of thing so we can see where things are in the process. So that's what the forms interface looks like. So on our dashboard, what we end up with is some useful summary information. We've got a system that auto assigns an order ID for me, and then just the broad information, the name of the company, contact, and then a cool thing we have here is this countdown timer. It's a countdown or count up timer. Now this kind of system, this business, they want to respond quickly, and if something's stalled, they want to know about that. And you can see I have this real-time counter, and it's helping me keep track of when was the last time this order was updated. And then in the last two columns we have the have like a priority, so we can help control that, and then your status on the right side. So I'll go ahead and update one of these for you and just kind of show you the general idea about how this works. So once the order started, I can go to my order process and just check one of these. Now what's interesting is, of course, depending on where you are in the process, there's different actions that you might want to do. So in this case, I'm going to set it as a corporate order. See, there's like a decision. That's what the diamond indicates. So because it's corporate order, I can just go in here, check that box, hit save. And when we come back to the dashboard, you're going to see that this has updated its status. And when I come back in, when I go to that diagram, you'll see that that's updated to reflect its current status. Notice also the last action counter, that reset for me. So it's kind of a way I can check to see if something's stalled and, look out for those ones that maybe fell through the cracks a little bit. Okay, see how that changed? And the way I'm doing this is through images. So you saw at the beginning, I was making diagrams in draw.io. And then basically what I did is I just loaded this into SharePoint. So that you saw I was highlighting, it was really easy. Once I have my diagram, I just highlight and then I can just save the images. So what I ended up with is a set of images that I just loaded up to my site. At that point, I just need a dynamic system to make this image update for each of those records, which is actually really easy to set up, and I don't have to do any special code to make that happen. Okay, so that's kind of what the form process looks like. Let me check here quick. What I'm going to do is kind of go into some of the settings and talk to you about how you might be able to create something like this. And another thing I want to do is show you how the line items works, because certainly in an order system that's important. So let me go ahead and add a new line item. So the line items are actually a separate list, which I've just associated to the main list, which is the orders list, so I can put new stuff in. And actually, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna start a new order just so we can start from the very beginning. 1 second. And what I will do, I got some stuff I'm just gonna paste in here. Just kind of putting in some dummy information just to kind of demonstrate the concept, test my system, that kind of thing. All right, so this is just basic stuff, contact information, email, those kind of things. Okay, and then we'll get to the orders part of it. That's what I wanted to show you. And I kind of set this up so it could be, in the US or international, that kind of thing. Of course, you could have drop downs and things like this. I just kind of try to put something together to show our concept. So the general idea is when the order comes in, they put in the contact information. Notice I show only this information on a new order. I don't want to show all that history and diagram and actions and everything because it doesn't apply yet. So what I'm able to do is control the user interface based on where I am in this process. And that way it's more streamlined and easier for my users to understand. Okay, so I'm just going to put in a couple line items in here to kind of show you how this would work. So we've got an order coming in, and I just put in my price. Now what's kind of cool is it'll auto-calculate. See that extended price? I can create a dynamic rule where that'll happen for me automatically. And another cool thing is in my parent record, I can have an order total. You'll see once I add another line item, it'll go ahead and update again for me. Okay, so I'm going to put in one more line item and just put in something like this. And notice this is all updating real time. I don't have to wait for a server post back or anything like that. So that order total updated for me again. So that's all kind of happens for me automatically. Okay, then my order goes in, and then I can click on this line items column and have it accordion out for me, and I can see the sub items for this. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is actually kind of go in through some of the configuration and show you a little bit about how this is set up without having to use any code. So the Ultimate Forms app is something that can be loaded in SharePoint Online, or you can have this software also for on-premise SharePoint. And once you've got it in there, you can do everything in SharePoint. I don't have to go out to use SharePoint Designer. I don't have to use any external tools. It's all just baked right into SharePoint right next to my list. So it's very easy to get to those settings. So with the app installed, I have that puzzle piece icon in the menu, and then I can go to this settings hub and access everything that I need to do to set up the kind of form solution that I was showing to you. So you saw we kind of have some special fields. For example, that those icons you were seeing, that's called a color choice field. It basically just lets you take a just like a regular choice field and turn it into something where there's an icon showing. So it gives kind of some more meaning to that interface, makes things stand out rather than just having plain text. So I literally just click a couple things, pick out some icons. So I've got 250 choices here. Once I have those mapped over, I just hit update, and that's all that I have to do to change that boring status column to a color choice field with indicators. Speaking of indicators, the countdown that you saw in there, all I had to do for that is basically just point to modified. Because what I want to know basically is how much time has passed since I modified the record. So I literally just had to click through a few fields, pick which date time column I want to point to, and then I can configure, do I want to show just days or days, hours, minutes, etc., and I can change the colors and stuff like that. So it's all configuration based. I just can go to these different settings options, and all of this enhances and expands my abilities as far as what I'm able to set up in SharePoint. Okay, So after you kind of set up your fields, you notice I have a tabbed interface. So the way that works with the Infowise settings, basically you can just create whatever tabs you want, and instead of being in a long scrolling interface, which is kind of the out-of-the-box SharePoint, you can divide it up into those logical sections. And it's really just a matter of picking your columns, and then you can double click and it moves it over to the right, and you control the order they're in. And that's literally all that you have to do to map those columns into that tabbed interface that I was showing you. You can see like the history field. I just map that over to the tab. And then even outside of that, just in terms of look and feel, I can do things like change the theme, which will have kind of different fonts and colors, just to get a different look, however I want to do that. So that part's really easy to set up. Okay, those auto totals you might have noticed, I can do things like create rules to handle that kind of thing for me. So in the line items, that's my subtotal one. I'll show you how that works. I just made a simple rule, and it's just exactly what you expect. It's quantity times price, right? So what this does is makes it where this column will just auto update the total for me without me having to do anything. It just happens automatically in the interface. And all I have to do is just pick from the fields that are in the list, and just put quantity times price and create that rule. And that's all that I had to do to get that field to just automatically calculate and update for me. Okay, so a big part of the solution I showed you has to do with the workflow process. So we have a diagram and we have it updating the interface. That's really cool. So you're probably wondering how do you drive that action? How do you make that update? So I think we all know, doing workflow in SharePoint Designer, it's a headache and it's really an old way of doing things. And we're now trying to look for other kind of options to do that. So if you do the actions in Infowise, that's right in the SharePoint interface. I'll just kind of show you what that looks like. And I really love this part of the tools because it allows me to configure and set up the business process so much faster than I would be able to do this otherwise. Just waiting for that to load up. So what you can do here is really all the things that you would have otherwise had to do with really cumbersome process as far as building, classic SharePoint workflow. You can come in here and build out your whole business process here. So I'll just show you one of these actions. So if the update action lets me update field record information, and basically I just go through these tabs. So I have some HTML that I stuck in there for the history. And then for the diagram, I'm just referencing to that image directory. So for new, I know it's going to be the new diagram. You can see I just pick whether this is going to be for the new or edit form or some other event, and just make those updates. And then I have those checkboxes. If you remember, I have those different actions. So what's actually making my status change as I'm working through the process is doing those actions. So basically what I'm doing is creating a listener for each of those different types of actions and then making updates accordingly. So let's look at the set as corporate order. That was one I was doing earlier, and show you, there's not a whole lot to it. Basically, I just need to check the checkbox field. If you remember, there's the checkbox that set as corporate order, and I say that if after change that's yes, then change my status. So this will update the status field, and then I can have other things trigger off of that. So every single one of those actions can just be triggered based on that simple kind of a rule. Okay, and then I do need to update that diagram. So I do that dynamically. I'll just kind of show you how that works. So there's two things I want to do. I want to do history tracking, and I want to update that image diagram, and of course that's according to the status. So when the status does change, what I want it to do is basically change that image reference in that site assets directory to kind of point to the new folder. Okay, I got a good question in the chat. It's about how to do email notifications. So the email notification system in this is really robust. I'll kind of show you how you can get to that through the interface. All right, hold on a second. This thing's kind of being a little slow on me. So the email alerts in SharePoint are really basic. You can do very little with that. In Infowise, you can actually create alerts that lets you do email templates and really design, like a polished interface and that kind of thing. So the question is, how would you modify that? Basically, what you do is come in the mail template section, and first of all, you got to do your content. That's what you want to do first. So I'll just show you kind of some examples of, okay, these are based on their list. Hold on a second. Just let it think about that for a second. Basically, you put together the email content, and then you come up with a trigger, just like the action. So you define when that's going to be sent out. So in our case, if we want to do it on status change, I'll just kind of show you how that would work. 1 second. Let me get out of here. That thing's thinking my window load. So this is from the orders thing. So I could do orders, status change, and then you pick who it's going to go to. So by default, I have that set to go to me, but I can have it go to whoever's creating the order, who it's modified, or things like that. And then in that case, what I'd be interested in is when status change. So what I can do is do status after change, and that'll make it so that anytime the status changes, it'll update my record. Okay, so basically you just come through and make those rules, and then you can set up a template for that. So that's just based on this configuration menu through Infowise. Okay, let me hop back to my site for a second. Okay, so in order to take advantage of that, all I really need is the app in Infowise. So if you notice, all I had to do was click add an app and then add the Infowise Ultimate Forms app in there. And the cool thing is it's really easy to get this included into your site. For on-premise SharePoint, the installation is a little different because, of course, that doesn't use the app model in the way that SharePoint Online does, but all the same tools and abilities are there. Let me kind of talk to you about how you can, play around with this and check out how things work. And then what I will do is I'll try to go into any questions if we have them. And if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat interface. So if you want to kind of try this out and see how some of these tools works, we have a full featured trial you can download. And to get the app, just pick Office 365. And we actually have really good instructions. It's really simple to do this. There's a nice little YouTube video that shows you exactly what to do. Or if you have on-premise, it shows you the process for that. But the cool thing is you can try every aspect of the product just to kind of see what it does, before making any decision. Another thing that's great is if you do start using these tools, we do provide a free 2-hour training for our new customers to kind of help you get ramped up and help you to learn how to use these tools a little bit quicker than you might otherwise. Lots of good training options for you. So if you're getting started with this tool set, if you look in training, we offer web-based training where we'll work with you and do lab-style training with your organization. So that would be something you could do after the Kickstart training. Outside of that, we have many, many tutorials which show you how to use all the individual components of our tools. So to get to that, you can just go into resources, tutorials, and really that area explains just about any part of our product that you might want to learn about. And then we do write-ups in our blog all the time about feature updates and new things that we're releasing. So that's one cool thing about this, that you get updates and the product just keeps improving as you have it, which is great. It's not just like a static set of tools where it's going to be the same thing always. So let me take a look at questions, and after that we can go and do the drawing for the shirt. I did see in the chat. So I got a question about, can you use roles for workflow task assignments? So you can do configuration based on roles. Let me talk to you about how you can kind of tap into some of that. So in Infowise, when you're setting up permissions, you can actually configure based on SharePoint security group. So if in my system I have say like a managers for the order system, and then I may have like the regular team workers, I may want to show or not show according to a security group, and you absolutely can control that way. Our Kickstart training actually shows a help desk system, building a help desk system, and really reviews that concept. So let's just say, for example, I wanted to make this column show, only for certain users. I can put in a specific person or a security group, just picking from SharePoint, and I can define roles. I can say if they're in or not in that group and control access to that field according to that. So that's one way you can kind of differentiate between different roles. Let's see. Oh, there's a question about modern UI in SharePoint. There's a note about this. You can add in, we do support the modern experience. There's a blog article about that, and you can read about that. So whether you're using classic list views or modern list views, these tools will work for both. So you don't have any concern, but you don't have to take my word for it. You can load this app and try it, and you can do it either way. Yeah, there's a couple questions about that. Okay, let's do the drawing for the shirt. So the way we're going to do this, I've got an Infowise shirt. Just because of postage and everything, this is limited to folks living in the United States. Just because shipping can get really expensive for us otherwise. What I'd like you to do is just enter into the chat interface a number from 1 to 100. I've kind of got a number picked out. I'll give you a minute, and then I'll pick a winner for that. All right, enter your numbers in the box. All right, ending in 3, 2, 1. Okay, I don't know if I'm saying your name right, but it's Sony Hansen. Just send me an email to willc@infowisesolutions.com. I'll put that in the chat for you. There you go. And send me your shirt size and address, and I'll go ahead and get the shirt out to you. So congratulations on that. So that's most of what I want to demonstrate today. Just to kind of summarize, having visual components in your SharePoint tools is really important, but SharePoint really doesn't provide good utilities for you to do that. Our SharePoint tool set really gives you a lot of robust functionality. It allows you to build your business processes using the actions, and then incorporate visual components through some of those special kinds of fields, and by incorporating that process diagram like I was showing. So I'm hoping that gives you some ideas. We actually do workshops with our customers, and I do plan to do another workshop where we're going to actually build out the solution from scratch. So that'll be coming a little bit further down the road. We do have lots of recordings of both workshops and webinars we've done if you want to look at some other example kind of solutions that we've built with the software. If you want to get more specific information in a one-on-one session, if you go into our website, you can request a demo, and we're very happy to set up a web session with you to get into more depth about how your organization might use it. So please consider that. And that's about everything I have to cover. Sorry for the technical difficulties at the start, but I hopefully this gave you some good ideas or might lead to some more questions about possibly using this in your own solutions. And like I say, please feel free to contact me. I'm happy to answer any questions or help you in any way in terms of considering building a solution like this. Thank you very much.